Welcome back to Movies TV Mad and Tuesday's edition of the DCU Daily. Today's DCU Daily may be the most important video I have ever done or will ever do because it's more important than reacting to trailers and gossip. Because James Gunn has done an interview, a very frank, deep interview with Rolling Stone, a huge magazine, a huge platform, and it's very, very interesting. Unlike most DC content creators, we're going to read out every syllable, every decibel of this interview, every question, every answer, and I'm going to give you my thoughts, feelings, and heartfelt emotions about every answer. I'm going to be totally truthful with you about what I think. I'm not just going to say, oh, I hate James Gunn, which I don't. I'm not just going to say, oh, let him cook or move on, right? We're going to get into this. It's very, very important. There is a Superman movie coming up that Gunn has written and directed. What he has to say about everything DC and Hollywood is utterly important. So let's begin. Superman director James Gunn. You don't want everyone to root for you. Now, this is an excerpt of the interview where he talks about the Snyderverse fandom. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think about that when we get to that question and that answer, but it absolutely blows my mind that Rolling Stone are actually asking James Gunn, the co-CEO of DC Studios, about a fandom. It's crazy to me that these fans are living rent-free in Warner Brothers Discovery's head, the media's head, other fans' heads. It's crazy. For me, it's a big win for the Snyder community. It means WB Discovery and Gunn and Safran are afraid of these fans. Anyway, DC Studios co-CEO goes deep on his high-stakes take on the Man of Steel, the future of his new DC universe, and how getting fired helped him feel loved. By Brian Hyatt. So let's get into this. It's not hard to find James Gunn's office on the Warner Brothers lot. Isn't it interesting? He's got an office on the Warner Brothers lot. So there's not a separate DC Studios office. He's actually got an office at Warner Brothers. Proves to everyone what I've been saying, that DC Studios is nothing but a logo owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. A huge glowing Superman-esque symbol beckons from an entrance wall, visible through a glass door from yards away. Gunn 58 is in his third year as co-CEO of the company's newly created DC Studios, sharing the title and office with Peter Safran, who handles the business side of the operation. Together, they're creating a new superhero universe around some very old characters, aiming to finally make Superman and Friends and Family and Flying Pet truly competitive with the current shaky Marvel Cinematic Universe. Gunn is a refugee from that universe after writing and directing his final MCU movie, 2023's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Superman, due July 11th, is the first feature film set in the new DCU and arguably one of the highest stakes movies ever made. Though Gunn despises that framing. Yes, I bet he does. I bet he does despise that framing. And I'm going to read you what he says about all of this. He's in total denial how this movie must succeed. Of course, he's really not, but he knows the probability is that maybe this movie isn't going to make 800 to $1 billion. Maybe it will, but maybe he's afraid it won't. So he's saying, I'll tell you what he's saying. Let's get into it. He's an unlikely studio exec, but he still took the position. To say the least, he spent his early years trying every conceivable creative outlet, fronting bands, drawing alt-weekly comic strips, acting, performing, monologues in dive bars. He also got a Columbia MFA and published a raw early alt's debut novel. The toy collector, finding a path to his true calling when Lloyd Kaufman, co-founder of famed B-movie purveyor Troma Entertainment, paid him $150 to write a screenplay for something called Tromeo and Juliet. I bet it's a real page-turner. He was soon writing big-budget movies from Scooby-Doo to Dawn of the Dead and directing quirky films of his own, one of which caught Marvel's attention, landing him the first Guardians of the Galaxy in 2014. With that film, he made himself an instant A-plus list director, forging a blockbuster from a deeply personal blend of left-field humour, visual dexterity, and aching empathy for the oddest of characters, all scored with the Cosmos' greatest mixtape. After the second movie in 2017, right-wing trolls unearthed some of his edgy earlier tweets. Edgy. Now, I don't talk about the tweets that much, but the tweets make fun of children being abused. That's hardly edgy. But anyway, and Marvel fired him. They soon changed their minds, but the temporary separation opened the door to his first DC film, The Suicide Squad, and his current gig. Now, the reason he was able to go back and finish Guardians 3 is because his friends that he put on the movie refused to continue making that movie with any other director. Gunn, like a lot of successful people, is ruthless, and I respect the hell out of that ruthlessness. In a glass case in the hallway of his shared office, which once belonged to Frank Sinatra, is a full Superman costume worn by the late Christopher Reeve. A Gene Hackman wore Lex Luthor bathrobe is in its own case in the spa-sized bathroom. Gunn sits on a couch with Superman and Aquaman action figures looming above him on a mantle. On the coffee table are various DC comics, among them one eyebrow-raising anomaly, a copy of the first Marvel DC crossover project, 1976's Superman vs. The Amazing Spider-Man, The Battle of the Century. Supergirl, which is out next year, is wrapping principal photography. How much were you on the set? 0. Very little. I mean, at the very beginning, but I've been pretty busy, as you might imagine. I was really involved at the script stage, but then director Craig Gillespie has just been such a great partner. He's just been doing his thing. You never know how something cuts together, but right now, it looks amazing. It's really cool stuff. I think this is what's really important about reading this whole interview, because normally I'm talking about rumours and whispers, but this is coming out of the horse's mouth, and this is why it's very important to go through the whole thing, so please bear with me. That's no longer called Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, correct? Pauses. I think it's just called Supergirl, so like Superman Legacy, they cut the Legacy and called it Superman, and they're cutting the Woman of Tomorrow and just calling it Supergirl. Why? Bit of a mouthful probably, and probably they're not going to be as faithful with that graphic novel as once planned. That's where I'm looking at this, so very interesting. Your Superman movie was first called Superman Legacy. Let's start again. It's jumping about. Your Superman movie was first called Superman Legacy, and now it's just Superman. Yeah, I'm always cutting. Legacy was really, we do something called a pre-mortem. A pre-mortem is you get together with your group that's doing the project. It's usually about a couple of months before shooting. And you go, hypothetically, if it's an epic disaster, what are the things that we're doing today that are going to cause it to be an epic disaster? Everyone here can speak freely. The things you find on another production are the things that people are whispering. Oh God, I don't know why they cast that actor. He doesn't fit the role. Or the production designer's never on time. One of the things I brought up was it was called Superman Legacy, even though I was the one that gave it that title. I just wasn't sure, first of all. I'm sick of the superhero title, other name thing. And then also it seemed to be looking back when we were looking forward, even though it does have to do with legacy in the movie itself, and everybody was like, oh yeah, no, change it. It occurred to me that this particular version of Superman needed to do a certain version of you and a certain version of the audience. Could 2010 James Gunn have made this film? I don't think the 2020 James could. Everybody knows I was offered Superman in 2018. They also talked to me about Batman earlier than that. But I was in the middle of Guardians 3. If they had come to me in 2018 with Batman, I would have said yes. But yeah, I just couldn't quite wrap my head around it. So he didn't want Superman in 2018, but he would have said yes to Batman. Doesn't fill me with confidence that he's a big Superman guy, but we'll see when we see the movie. What had changed? I needed the right way in, and that required time to think through a few thousand options before I got to the way that I thought worked. But I do also think that my life and my career has been a gradual softening of the edges. I still like black comedy, I still have edges, but I used to like provoking a lot. And today, although I still seem to do it, I don't really like doing it that. In my heart, I'm pretty sentimental. I just believe in basic human values. I think Guardians of the Galaxy was a good starter kit for that. They all had a lot of heart. They have a lot of heart, but they do have their own weirdness and oddities and edginess, and Superman isn't that. Even though he does from the outside have a lot of oddness, a flying dog in a cape is odd. Giant walking robots in cages, that's all odd. But the very good nature of him, this really strong belief in what's right, sometimes perhaps to a fault, is what makes Superman who he is. And that is not Star-Lord or Rocket. That's not a guy who's angry or covering up his emotions. He's pretty pure. And so getting to the place where I could write that character was a journey. In the past, I would have done it through making fun of the character, and I don't think that's what I do here. Now, this is very, very important. This is one of the criticisms that Gunn has found faced towards him, that he does make fun of characters when he's writing about them, and if he did this with Superman, he will be destroyed. This movie will be a flop. So he says he doesn't think he's done this here. If you have, mate, you are in a lot of trouble. You can't do that, not to Superman. I'm less afraid now than I used to be. I allow myself to be purely creative more than I used to. And I thought I was being purely creative, but a lot of times it was just anger releasing itself in another way. I'm less afraid of being goofy or sentimental or boring or straight. But goofy is something else that you've been criticised for being, James. My life and career has been a gradual softening of the edges. Basically, it's just paraphrasing what we've already read. We continue. I've seen a bit of the movie, and there's a very grounded interview scene between Lois and Clark that seems like new territory for you. That's a huge thing for me. I have long talking scenes in Guardians, but they are stuffed with jokes, and that's not the case here. There's funny stuff that happens in that scene, but it's all situational. And so allowing myself to write that scene, which is truly about two characters and the different ways they see the world and morality. I must admit, what I saw from that interview scene I loved. And by the way, a lot of people criticised it. I had no problem with it. So you would have had the impulse to make that more jokey. Yeah, horror movies and comedies are so comforting to a filmmaker because if they're working, the audience is reacting constantly, even like people crying at the end of Guardians 3. But it's also a rather selfish thing as a filmmaker because I'm not making something so I can sit in an audience and be happy. I'm making something that really works on a fundamental level. So I have to be willing to sit there with an audience and not know if they're liking it or not. That's a good thing. That's what I've been moaning about, these test screenings and changing things all the time. Make something. Tell a story from your gut. Don't worry if people are going to like it or not. Take a gamble. After you temporarily got fired from Marvel for some old tweets, I like the way they just make it out like it's no big deal. You said a ton of friends reached out to you and that for the first time in your life you had a transformative experience of feeling truly loved. There's no doubt that without that experience I don't think that I would have written the Superman that I wrote. I definitely wouldn't be doing this job if I didn't get fired, but I don't know if I'd be doing this job even if it wasn't for that. I just don't think that a character that pure would have quite appealed to me. That's what I told you. He's not a Superman guy. How did that open the door? I don't think that opened the door to me writing the pure Superman. That opened the door for me to stop creating so that people would like me. That's downplaying it. So people would love me. I think on some level, everything I had done came from a pleasing place. A tap dancing for the audience kind of thing. That's exactly right. Which came from that kid in a dysfunctional family trying to make everybody happy by dancing around. That's what my fucking career was. Not in total, but it was a neediness on my part. A need to be loved. And one of the most interesting things for me is my relationship with actors. How I got stood at working with people like Chris Pratt is because he came in and I'm like, stop, you don't need to juggle. Same thing with John Cena. You don't need to juggle for the audience to like you. You're a fucking movie star. You just be present and be yourself and show that natural vulnerability that's a part of who you are as a human being, and that speaks to people. Now this is him. This is Gunn. This is what's made his movies so successful. He shows characters' vulnerabilities. He takes these macho guys and he shows us their vulnerabilities, but he doesn't just do it to the men. He's very good at writing women as well. For Gunn, it's all about showing that vulnerability where people allow you to see the vulnerability within them. And that's the thing I love about Gunn's movies. So you were giving that advice, but not to yourself at that point. Really good at giving that advice, but not taking it to heart in a way that was transformative, which is what that moment gave to me. But again, I'm not perfect on the other side of it. It's not like I'm not still doing things to validate myself in some way. That's still part of me being a fucking imperfect human being, but my basic life choices are not made according to that. Even if you were initially worried about the idea of Rocket in Guardians, you said it would be like having Bugs Bunny with the Avengers. So clearly audiences needed to evolve to accept the flying dog in a movie. You paved the way. That's right, Rocket made the world ready for Crypto, although in a way Crypto is way more grounded than Rocket, because Crypto is simply a superpowered dog. He's just a poorly behaved dog, which is what my dog is. So he's really easy and fun to write. And a lot of people are triggered by Crypto, and they're trying to say it's Crypto's movie. It's not Crypto's movie. This is Gunn. This is Gunn. He loves animals. That's why Rocket, was such a big part of Guardians. He loves animals, and he loves showing us the character, not just of human beings, but animals. I'm totally fine with a super dog being in this movie. I'm totally fine with him being inspired by his own dog. These are things I'm not concerned about. I don't want James Gunn to be Zack Snyder, Steven Spielberg, or anyone else. He's not my first choice to be DCU co-CEO, DC Studios co-CEO. He's not my first choice to write and direct a Superman movie, but he's here. And at the very least, he's doing his own thing. This is why I'm angry that they cut the episodic formula out of the movie, because that was him being him. One of your big innovations here is the sci-fi Silver Age Superman stuff, robots, etc., that has never been in a live action film. Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder, written by Goyer and Nolan, had robots, had the Kryptonian robots in it. Let's not get it twisted. Anyway, yeah, I think that's the biggest tonally novel thing about this film, and it really is based on the tone of the 2000s comic book series All-Star Superman in a lot of ways, and taking that tone into a cinematic realm is not the usual thing for a superhero movie, or for any movie. So I really was thinking a lot when making the film about graphic novels more than movies, which fans will be happy about, by the way. Fantastic Four is coming around the same time as Superman and seems to share that Silver Age optimistic feel. It's interesting, given weird times in the world right now, that seems to be the right vibe. Maybe, but do you really think they're alike? I'm really embracing the Silver Age of it all, but I don't think that it is as stylized, or at least not stylized in the same way. And it's not as retro. There are retro-futuristic aspects because we got the Daily Planet with a big fucking globe, and the robots, and the machinery. So I can see where there's certain similarities. On a story level, what cracked Superman for you? It was crypto. Now, that does kind of worry me that what cracked Superman for him was crypto. But then maybe crypto is the thing that we're all going to love, that cracks this film for us. We will see. The beginning of the movie is the first thing I wrote, with Crypto coming to Superman in the snow and Crypto taking him home. That really was about the tone of the whole movie. It's a flying dog who wears a cape, but that led immediately to the robots, to the fortress rising from the ground, to the device that isn't in the comics, the giant magnifying glass which powers him up more quickly than just a regular sun would, bringing all those elements into a Superman movie in a way that hasn't happened. Not to mention that he exists in a world where superheroes or some form of metahumans have existed for 300 years. It's just a different thing. And I'm fine with that. You know, a DC universe that has, that's existed for ages. I like that. I'm less afraid. No, right, that's just another paraphrase. Right, let's carry on. Eddie Murphy once told me that nearly every bad movie happens because of Hollywood's habit of setting a production date before they have a finished screenplay. Yeah, totally. Listen, you can do everything right and make a bad movie. I'm really compassionate towards people that put all into a movie. I know some people that were my former workers at Marvel, people who made some of the worst movies. There were people that were lazy and didn't put their time in. And then there were other directors that worked really hard and maybe didn't have the best movie come out. But they did everything they could. This is interesting. But I do believe that the reason why the movie industry is dying is not because of people not wanting to see movies. It's not because of home screens getting so good. The number one reason is because people are making movies without a finished screenplay. Now, this is very important. I don't think this is the only major reason that Hollywood is dying and pretty much dead. But he's right. Bad movies is the reason people are not going to cinemas. Bad streaming movies, bad streaming shows, laziness, hammering people over their head with social commentary. And let me quickly just say this. I came from one of the wokest eras in television history, which was the 80s and the late 90s, right? Think about it. Little House on the Prairie, one of the wokest shows you'll ever see. Quantum Leap, one of the wokest shows you'll ever see. I'm rewatching it right now. So Woke. Highway to Heaven, one of the most wokest shows you will ever see. Beverly Hills 90210, the original one, had gay teenagers coming out, lots of different things. Nobody gave a shit because it was done so well. But the major reason why people don't like social commentary and entertainment today is because fucking Trump changed the world for the worse and made everyone from both sides a shithead. And that's one of the biggest rules you've made for DC, that they have to have finished scripts. Yeah, we just killed a project. Everybody wanted to make the movie. It was greenlit, ready to go. The screenplay wasn't ready, and I couldn't do a movie where the screenplay's not good. And we've been really lucky so far because Supergirl's script was so fucking good off the bat, and then Lanterns came in and the script was so fucking good. Clayface, same thing, so fucking good. So we have these scripts that we've been really lucky with, or wise in our choices, or whatever the combination is. Now, what he's saying is, he's not afraid to kill a project if the script's not ready, if the script's shit. He isn't going to make a shit movie just for the hell of it. Now, this is brilliant. If he's being honest and genuine, this is spot on. And I like this attitude. But you can never really take everything on the level that they say it. That's the problem. But what he's saying is bang on. I like the fact that he's talking about lazy directors, lazy writers at Marvel. That's a good thing, but also talking about the good ones as well. So if he sticks with this and he cancels projects that are not working, that's a good thing, if he's being honest. You've written hundreds of pages of material recently between the Creature Commandos animated show, Peacemaker Season 2 and Superman. Do you ever worry about exhausting the well? If I do, then I'll go raise goats. I really am fine. There's a lot of directors who get worse as they get older, and I don't want to do that. Or maybe I do. I don't know. It's like if it runs out, it hasn't so far, but who knows? You said you feel like you were able to be creative without fear now, but at the same time you gave yourself permission to be pretty creative from early on. You were working in all of these different mediums. I had comic strips published everywhere. That was really what I thought I was going to do. When I was younger, I wanted to be like Berkeley Bree from Bloom County, although I was also really playing music at the same time. So who knows? I wanted to be a rock star, but at the same time I liked the idea of having my characters on bed sheets and stuff. I was just searching for a way to be noticed and make money. I really wanted to make a living as an artist, and then of course I wanted to be famous, all of those things. So I really was just trying whatever. And for me, the whole secret was finishing whatever I started. It did feel like I had a bunch of half projects out there until I was in my mid-20s. Was that linked to getting sober, you finishing projects? No, that was sort of faith thing. When I was in school for writing, I had 51 first chapters of novels, and then at a certain point I just had the realization, which was in the form of a spiritual awakening, which was just to finish what you start. You had that revelation while you were ghostwriting a book with Troma Studios co-founder Lloyd Kaufman, right? That's exactly what it was. I was writing the book for Lloyd and I wanted to quit because it was fucking killing me. I didn't have a small ego, and I felt, we know that, and I felt like I was doing a lot of things for Troma and I didn't feel like I was getting any respect for it. And now I'm ghostwriting something that I thought was hilarious, and the more I was writing it, the funnier I thought it was, the more resentful I was becoming. So I talked to Lloyd about, I think I've got to stop, which was crazy because I got paid money to do it. A lot of this is really ungrateful for me. I'm not saying this in any good way, but I'm fucking driven. And that's when I had that awakening, which was to finish what you start. So then I went back and I finished the book. I still hated doing it, but the minute that happened, my life changed within weeks, literally within weeks, because that's when I wrote the 2000 indie film, The Specials, and finished that. And instantly, everything happened. You've talked about moments of almost spiritual visions, not quite like the ones in your film, super but pretty similar. And finish what you started was in that category. I found 1000%. That one was what kept me awake, for that one was long. That was the most intense ever. What did you experience? What did you see? I mean, it's long, but my whole life is based on that fucking whatever that was. I have no clue how long it was. Maybe it was an hour, maybe it was 7 hours, but yeah, it was really just aligning a lot of the things I believed about myself, about finishing what you start, about it's not my business whether people think of my shit. My business is doing what I do, and that's it. It was my faith in God, which is a big part of who I am. And yet at the same time, I don't think God really cares whether you believe in him or not. But I heard finish what you start. That was like hearing the voice of God, as if it was completely outside of me. I didn't realize he was religious. Very interesting. It's weird that you had a lot of artistic outlets and it wasn't clear which one was going to pop off. That's totally true. And at the end of the day, I think what I like the best is directing, because I like the right brain part of it a lot. I like the puzzle part of it. I like shooting action. That's like my favorite thing to do. But yeah, I never really saw myself as one thing. I just saw myself as an entertainer for sure. When you took on Spy vs. Spy, then Scooby-Doo, was that in any way a sellout movie in your mind? No. I don't even think like that. If I didn't want to write those things, then yeah, it would have been a sellout movie. But I wanted to write them. I was excited by the ideas. Really excited. I loved Scooby-Doo as a little kid, as did we all. I loved him. I still love Scooby, so that was exciting to me. It's interesting that the guy who wrote The Toy Collector about someone's messed up attachment to the icons of their childhood then takes on Scooby-Doo and then eventually Superman. Oh yeah, I guess so. I love bringing reality to things that I loved as a kid and saying, okay, if this was real, if Scooby-Doo was real, if Superman was real, if Rocket Raccoon was real, how would that be? How would they be real? He says, I relate to Lex more than I wish I did. He's just meaner than me. Wow. In the Superman trailer, we see that Lois already knows Clark is Superman. So you bypass one of the stickiest issues. How does Lois not see past the glasses? It comes up again later in the movie and it's explained. She says it. We mention it. And it's one off and people chuckle. But there's stuff later in the movie about the glasses that are canon. That's canon in the comics. There's a controversial 70s issue of the comic book where it shows that Superman basically uses super hypnotism to change people's perception of him in the glasses. It was an idea sent in by a fan that has been mostly ignored since. Something like that. I only know it from DC Comics writer Tom King. The first time we met was at Peter Safran's house. We had this sort of writers group come in. One of those people was Tom King, and he was the most helpful. I'm like, I just don't know how to fucking deal with the glasses thing. I do. Because it bothers the fuck out of me. It doesn't bother me. All that little stuff that people are like, it's a fantasy, just let it go. Yes, that's true. I'm like, no, I have to explain everything. You don't. You don't. Because I know why you want to explain everything, because you want to deal with everyone's nitpicks, so you don't have a problem and you make more money, make a better movie. I get it. But the thing is with the glasses, it's not about the glasses. The point is, when he wears the glasses and he sits in the back of the room, and he's very quiet, and he doesn't draw attention to himself. I said it before, it's a bit like the TARDIS. Everyone walks past the TARDIS and doesn't notice it, right? Because it's just standing there. It just goes into the background. And that's what Clark Kent does in the glasses. He just fades into the background. That's why people don't realise he's Superman. It isn't that fucking deep. Anyway, no, I have to explain everything. Everything for me has to come from a place where I believe it. As outlandish as it is, with Rocket, I could not just make it a talking raccoon. It had to have a real foundation for where he came from and how he came to be, and I needed to believe that. What were some of the other things you felt you needed to explain to make this Superman work? There are things that I know I don't explain, that I don't even want to say out loud, but I wanted Superman to be vulnerable. Now, there's two ways of making Superman vulnerable. Emotionally, with his emotional challenges in everyday life, or you can just make him weaker. Making him physically weaker is a cop-out, and it's lazy writing. It's lazy storytelling. I see the online things. Who would beat whom? Homelander or Superman or fucking whatever. Adam Warlock or Brightburn. I'm like, this is the fucking stupidest fucking conversation. Like, so then whoever would win this fight means that they're the best because it'll just go out and write Godman. Who can destroy you with a win? And I win. I win all the fights forever. But I didn't want a Superman who could punch planets. And also we're creating a whole universe now. So what's the girl with the wings going to do in the face of that? So he's a little less powerful. Green Lantern and Guy Gardner are pretty fucking powerful. They're all pretty powerful. As I say, Superman should be able to punch planets. You don't, excuse me, you don't have to have that discussion. But saying he can't punch planets is a bit of a problem because we all know he can. He's super strong. Just because you say he's weaker, you haven't made him vulnerable. You've made him physically vulnerable. He should be able to be beaten up by other super beings and take a punch and bleed or something. He certainly shouldn't be able to be beaten up by an average human being. Maybe a clever person can outwit Superman, but Superman is supposed to be super intelligent as well. That is part of the concept of what Siegel and Schuster created. Honestly, in talking to people, a lot of people are like, I like Batman better because he can actually be beat. And I get that. So you have a Superman that can be beat. That's the problem. That's not good vulnerability. He can be beaten, as I say, by other superpowered people. That's fine. But he should never be able to be beaten up by a powerless human being. We will see what happens. But we see him bleeding and injured or weak. And weak a lot in this in the footage we've seen for this movie. That's a problem. Because there's one thing to be physically vulnerable at times in a movie, but they seem to be overstepping the mark. And I think Smallville were the ones who really nailed how to make Superman emotionally vulnerable. That's how you get people to relate to a character. This is why, young people, teenagers became Superman fans because of Superman, because of the emotional vulnerability of the character. So I think Gunn's a bit wrong for making him such a weaker Superman. We will see how the audience respond to that. There are people who've been saying the whole future of the studio might be riding on this movie. How do you work in the face of that kind of pressure? Really, I just go, that's their business, because that's not the truth for me. My truth is this is the first movie out of DC Studios. Other people may say it's got to be a home run, nothing else. I'm like, no, I'd be very happy with a double fucking Iron Man. Let's say that again. No, I'd be very happy with a double, whatever that means. Fucking Iron Man wasn't the be-all and end-all. Right, let's talk about this. He says, this doesn't have to be a home run. Yes, it does, James. Whether you say that out loud or not, Superman has to be a home run. It's as simple as that. And it at least has to equal the box office of Man of Steel, but has to make more. It has to be, you are under pressure, mate. You need to have made the best comic book superhero movie, or one of the best, in all of the comic book movie Genius history. So saying it doesn't have to be a home run, and you saying that Iron Man wasn't the be-all and end-all, yes it was, James. It broke records, it made huge box office. But the thing is with Iron Man, because he was a lesser character, there wasn't so much pressure. And comic book movies weren't the biggest of things back then. People were excited that Marvel Studios had formed an independent studio, and that was exciting. Even I was thinking about it. But that movie made 800 million plus, or whatever it made. That was the be-all and end-all back then. Everyone loved that film. Everyone was talking about it. So to say that you don't need this film to be a home run is the biggest bullshit I've ever heard. So where are we? Yeah, where we are. So yeah, it's not the puzzle, double fucking Iron Man wasn't the be-all and end-all. It wasn't Avatar. No, it wasn't Avatar, James, but it was still a big deal. Still made a lot of money. It was a success. We are doing something that's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the puzzle itself. We have Peacemaker, we have Supergirl. What we want to do is make a movie that people love, they feel connected to, the characters. It's just this one movie. It's not everything. It is everything, James. That's not how the journalists and Warner Brothers Discovery and Zaslav themselves are seeing this. They are seeing it as the be-all and end-all. Yes, people have to love the movie and relate to the characters. And if they do, the movie will make money anyway. I hate it when there's a fucking article and it's going on about all the problems and blah, blah, blah. And that means even more pressure on James Gunn and Superman. I'm like, guys, I'm not responsible for all that. I'm responsible for my piece of the pie. I've got to make my budget back. I'll be very happy with that. Now, he said he'll be happy with just making his budget back. You're lying. You're lying. You need to make a profit. You need to make a big profit. Your movie needs to make a lot of money, James. And there's no cope. There's no propaganda from me. I don't have an agenda against you. I'm an honest guy, right? I'm an honest guy. And what I'm saying to you is, you can't just get your profit back. You have to, can't get your budget back. You've got to make a lot of money, James. This movie absolutely has to be a home run, whether you like it or not. You are under that pressure. And you might not be responsible for the business side, but people see you as a co-CEO. So you are kind of part of that business side. Now, I know the truth. You're just a showrunner. You're the creative. But being called a CEO makes you feel like part of the business, and that's why you're being dragged into the business side of it. So where are we? You also cannot split planets. It's what you're saying. I cannot split planets, not that I know of. Over at Marvel, they've been pretty open about the fact that they realise what's gone wrong over the past few years. They put out too much stuff. Now, no, right, let's correct them. The Marvel Cinematic Universe hasn't been destroyed through putting out too much stuff. They wanted to have streaming and movies at the same time, so you have to employ more people, and they didn't do that, and that's part of the problem. But the problem has been writing female leads terribly, attacking the fans or attacking a section of the fans, pretty much what New Hollywood do today. The MCU is the reason that Marvel is crap. No one's saying don't have female leads, don't have female superheroes, right? But at least write them properly, right? They went bad woke, because it's good woke, as I keep on saying, bad woke. And the MCU is horrible woke. But they're trying to distract and pretend it's all about ordering too much projects. And longtime Marvel executive producer Luis Esposito said that privately to me, I don't even know if it's really their fault. Of course it's their fucking fault. Of course it's their fault. Whose fault is it? They were under a corporate mandate, yes. That wasn't fair. It wasn't right. It killed them. No. Creative bankruptcy killed them. Greed killed them. Being overly political killed them. Hating half their audience killed them. But you don't want to talk about that because they're your mates and that's okay. Watching that, especially after being involved, are there lessons to be taken on your end? There's no doubt we have to treat every project as if we're lucky. We don't have the mandate to have a certain amount of movies and TV shows every year. So we're going to put out everything that we think is of the highest quality. We're obviously going to do some good things and some not so good things. But hopefully on average, everything will be as high quality as possible. Nothing goes before there's a screenplay that I personally am happy with. Sitting on the table, here is a Superman Spider-Man crossover comic from the 70s. At some point, it feels like it's going to happen in movies, doesn't it? Maybe it's 10 years from now. We've talked about it a billion times, that could easily happen, but simultaneously to that, I think it would be interesting. But I also think people are a little over it. I think people want to see good stories with their superheroes, and that's what matters. And they want to see different types of stories with their superheroes. And people love superheroes, that's obvious. But they need more variety and they need just more quality storytelling. And just having Spider-Man and Superman team up isn't going to do it if it's shit. So it's got to come from a real place, and it's really hard to make that work. I did Superman because I loved the character and I was excited about writing that movie. If I were to write a Superman versus Spider-Man movie, is it a concept I'm going to be like, oh yeah, this could be a great film? Or am I doing it because, oh yeah, people want to see Superman and Spider-Man team up? For me, it would have to be, if we ever did that, it would have to be under someone who thought it was going to be awesome and wasn't just a cash grab. Because I'm just not into that, and that's good to hear. With this movie, you have people actively rooting against you because the fans of a previous incarnation of Superman and DC, Zack Snyder's fake surprise, what laughs, as you may have heard. I'm trying to think of how to say this best. I don't mind it. I think it's good. I think you don't want to have everybody root for you. And I have an actor who reads everything online. I won't say who it is, but he'll read this article and he'll know who it is. It's one of the top 5 in Superman. And this actor gets so upset over things that people say. I said, first of all, you realise that the trailer came out and the reaction was 97, 98% positive. These people help us because you don't want everything to seem 100% positive. That's a good point. That's a good point. It's all right to have an opposing force every once in a while. Some of the things get ridiculous. I just know that every time something comes out, it doesn't matter how positively received, there's going to be something that is of great controversy. It was great controversy that the Sun calls Superman pain. That's true. A lot of people are questioning. I don't think it's controversial. Actually, it makes absolute scientific sense because Superman's weak at that moment. That's not cope. That's scientific fact. So, let's talk about the fact that James was asked about the Snyderverse fans and the attacks and the criticism. I think he answered it beautifully without triggering them. But the fact, as I said earlier, that a huge publication even thought it was right to ask this question shows you the damage that Snyder fans are doing on a daily basis. Because if they're not doing any damage, the question doesn't get asked. Now, the creator of Deadpool and other people are telling everyone to move on and stop wanting to restore the Snyderverse. You know, people are aging out, blah, 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 blah. Right, listen. Those fans, as long as they fight in the right way, in a non-toxic way, are well within their right to want to fight to restore the Snyderverse for the next 100 years. It doesn't matter, right? It's not hurting you. It's not hurting you. And if this movie and this DCU is great, then the Snyder fans can't do anything to hurt it. So stop putting so much energy and power into one fandom and make good shit and support good shit and everything will be okay. But that's not what's happening. That was his bones snapping back together, right? Didn't realise that. It's like when a doctor resets your bone and you scream, but it doesn't fucking matter because it's that really a controversy? Is that really something you're upset about? Nope. Or did you have a hard time finding something to be upset about? He makes a great point, doesn't he? There's always going to be that. There's going to be something that people are upset about, and it's okay. This actor reads everything and he reads every fucking Reddit thread. He watches all the videos, including by the people who make their livings by hating us. That's how they make all their money, but you don't have to watch their videos. We're talking about how you're awful. You can't be reading it all the time. It'll fucking murder you. It's a terrible thing to do to your soul. And he's right, you shouldn't be watching all the bad stuff. By the way, James, I don't hate you. I don't hate this Superman movie, and I'm not making any fucking money. You see the views I get. If this actor working with you sees the views I get and sees how I speak, you know I'm not doing this for profit. I love movies. I love entertainment. I love storytelling. I write my own stories. You know, I write, direct, and perform with my amateur dramatic society here in Cyprus. So I love it. And I want to see a great Superman film. But by God, if I don't like something, I'm going to fucking say so. And I'm not going to be afraid of doing it just because you, man, are famous. Anyway, is this actor your lead, David Cronsweat? It's 100% not David. David is Superman. He's not a normal person. What was your way into Lex Luthor? I really understand Lex. I feel like I relate to Lex way more than I wish I did. But for me, Lex looks at Superman like artists look at AI. He is the world's greatest man in so many ways. He's done these unparalleled things, and then you've got a guy who comes in who's done nothing to deserve the ability to fly and to smash down buildings, and he's also extraordinarily handsome too. And all of a sudden, that all the world is talking about, and that sort of obsession with being replaced, with your gifts not being seen or passed over, I think is what drives Lex. I relate to everything he does. He's just meaner than I am. Do you know what you're writing and directing next as far as films? Yes, probably. I know what I'm writing right now. And it's a DC film? Yes. Nothing yet, I'm just getting into it. I really have a hard time writing when I'm in the late stages of post-production, which is we're almost done. But I really have a hard time. I traditionally start heavily writing the day, whatever my last movie comes out. I write treatments first, so I'm a couple of treatments in. So, is this Batman and Superman the world's finest? That's what everyone thinks. Don't ask me. Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. You once said that the fact that Robert Pattinson's Batman is not in this universe was Matt Reeves' choice. Does that mean if it were up to you, you would have just pulled that into your universe? It would be a consideration. We'd have to think about it. It's not like we've never discussed it. So let's be absolutely clear. He can't blatantly say, I don't want Matt Reeves' universe to exist. But he doesn't. If it was up to him, Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson will be absolutely part of the DCU. And I believe he's been trying to convince both men to do that. Because you can't have two Batmen. This is the reality here. And I think one of the things that disappoints me about Boba Talk sometimes, where he's not honest enough to say James Gunn doesn't want separate universes, because he keeps on shilling for James. That's great. I love Boba. I think he's a great creative, but he's a great creator. But I don't like the way that he won't just be honest and say this guy wants to separate, wants to unite something with in a contained universe that is separate, and I'm not happy with that. Do you know what I mean? But say it with the passion that you feel. Don't worry about who's watching, who's not going to watch, because he's got himself embroiled with people who love James Gunn, so he can't speak out too much against James Gunn now, and that's the problem Boba Talks has. Anyway, it's interesting your answer is much more present tense than I expected, as it's an ongoing possibility. No, I don't. Batman's my biggest issue in all of DC right now. Personally, and I'm not writing Batman, but I'm working with the writer of Batman and trying to get it right. Because he's incredibly important to DC, as is Wonder Woman. So outside of the stuff that I'm doing in the projects that are actively going, our two priorities are finishing our Wonder Woman and our Batman scripts. So Batman and Wonder Woman movies are in development. At the early stages, he's using a secret writer to write Batman, but it's interesting because if he's writing a Batman movie, is he also writing, the world's finest? Does that even make sense? I don't think that it does. So that's interesting, but he said it. Batman is really, really important. You can't mess about with Batman. You can't make a shit Batman or you're fucked. You've got to have Batman in your DC universe. So he, at the very least, knows that. But the problem is here, when do we see Batman? It's interesting, we saw Batman in the next second movie of the DCEU. And that was a good thing, because Batman's important. We had a great Batman in the DCEU. Don't get it twisted, no matter what people say. So it looks like we're going to have to wait. I exclusively revealed that Brave and the Bold wasn't happening in its current form. I believe that's the case. And I think they're worried. I think what they're going to do is not do a Batman movie until Reeves' The Batman 2 is released in a couple of years. And there's no way they'll cancel the Batman 2. They know they can't get away with it. The Batman 2 has to be released within its Elseworld format. They know that. That has to happen. I'm assuming the reason for the delays is Matt Reeves just taking his time, right? Or the delays and the strikes and everything that happened. Anyway, that movie is still in development, I assume. Lots of rumours, lots of theories, but I think they have to let that film happen in the way that Matt wants it to happen. Now, after that, maybe he'll join the DCU. Maybe that's what will happen. But they'll allow that movie to happen. I think if Superman flops, the Matt Reeves universe may be front and centre. It's all a very interesting situation. But in my opinion, the Batman 2 is going to happen because they wouldn't get away with bringing that into the DCU at this time. Now, if Superman makes $1 billion to $2 billion or does really well and people love it, then Gunn has more power to do whatever he wants, and that'll be interesting as well. The Batman script, is that still called The Brave and the Bold right now? Yes, right now. Right now. In other words, it's no longer The Brave and the Bold. I was right. That movie isn't what it was going to be. So I was right. It was cancelled. That original idea was cancelled. And Muschietti was never going to direct that Batman movie, and he won't be directing anything at the DCU. In the broadest sense, what needs to be figured out to make those two properties work? Batman in this universe. Batman has to have a reason for existing, right? So Batman can't just be, oh, we're making a Batman movie because Batman's the biggest character in all of Warner Brothers, which he is. But because there's a need for him in the DCU, and a need that he's not exactly the same as Matt's Batman, but yet he's not a campy Batman. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in a funny, campy Batman, really. So we're dealing with that. I think I have a way in, by the way. I think I really know what it's. I'm just dealing with the writer to make sure that we can make it a reality. So it's interesting. He's working with a writer. He's co-writing this movie with someone, but he won't release the identity of the writer. That's very, very interesting. I still low-key believe that we'll see Batman for a few seconds in Superman, but we'll see. Because the sooner they reveal Batman, DCU Batman, the better. You don't have to show us a movie for 2 years, 3 years, whatever. But we need to know that there's a Batman there. So it's interesting. Maybe he will be revealed briefly in Superman. And how about for Wonder Woman? Similar. Wonder Woman, I think, is actually easier for me because there haven't been so many infinite portrayals of Wonder Woman. Definitely not in movies, but really anywhere. But there have been of Batman. Every single Batman story has been told. It seems like half the comics that have come out of DC over the past 30 years have Batman in them. He's the most famous superhero in the world and the most popular superhero in the world. And people love him because he's interesting, but also having so much of him out there can also make him boring. So how do you create that property that's fun to watch? I really should clear this up. Is there still a non-zero chance that Matt Reeves' Batman will get sucked into your universe? Long pause, which means he has to think of some bullshit. I would never say zero because you just never know. So it's always a possibility. But it's not likely. It's not likely at all. I also say Batman Part 2 is not cancelled. That's the other thing I hear all the time. That Batman Part 2 is cancelled. It's not cancelled. We don't have a script. Matt's slow. Let him take his time. Let him do what he's doing. God, people are mean. Let him do his thing, man. Right. So this is interesting. We know that Matt Reeves takes his time. He writes at a snail pace. He's a perfectionist. He wants to get his vision right. We know the fact that he had to take the Penguin element of the Batman 2 and give it for this show that the studio wanted. That delayed him even further, right? So he's taking his time. He took his time in the first movie. It all ended up great. It was a great movie and all of that. So he's saying it's not cancelled. He's saying the guy is just a slow writer, which is true. So you've put your mast. You've put your flag on the mast now, James. You've said there's very little possibility that the Pattinson Reeves Batman will join the DCU. That the Batman 2 is not cancelled and it's absolutely happening. So you've said it now. If you were to reverse these decisions after you've said it in black and white, that would make you a liar. And that would mean nobody would ever trust you again. So if I were you, keep this bullshit. Keep it. He said there's very zero chance of Pattinson joining the DCU and the Batman 2 isn't cancelled. I believe we will see the Batman 2 because they can't get away, as I say, can't get away with not doing the Batman 2 in DC Elseworlds. What happens after the Batman 2, I think, is when things, if the Batman 2 is really, really successful, I believe, I've said before, I think the Batman 2 will make more money than Superman, interestingly, or any other DCU movie, because it's what people want. They want individual standalone takes rather than these plastic, connected universes, but we will see. How do you want to be remembered? Have you thought about this? I don't give a shit. I want to be remembered that I was nice to my family and that my family and friends love me. But I don't believe in any of that shit. First of all, everything is a sandcastle. Somebody wrote me that the other day. We have these problems, but that doesn't last. What will be remembered forever is the movies. I'm like, no, it won't. It's just fucking disintegrated with everything else. What I really do care about is that I'm good to my wife. And I really do care that I'm good to my friends and my brothers and my sister and my mom. I went to the funeral of one friend a few years ago, and he was split up from his wife, but he hadn't treated her well, hadn't treated his friends well. He had stood me up 3 times, supposed to meet me for lunch or something, and didn't show up. Funerals are always sad, but I think there are kind of fulfilling sad, where people are crying because they love somebody so much, and then there's this sort of depressing sad where it's like he just disappointed everybody and it's really hard for people to say nice things. We loved him, but it was hard. And that really affected me. I'm like, I don't want my funeral to be that, so I guess I really do think about it sometimes. But in terms of that, I want people to cry because I was good to them. And that, my friends, is the interview. That's an hour version of the DCU Daily. I'm going to press pause again, and then we are going to talk about what I'm going to give you in brief my thoughts of that interview. Well, I really hope you enjoyed the fact that I read that whole interview. I hope I read it all right. I'm not really great at reading things off my phone and doing videos. I know a lot of people don't like when I did it, but I think this was fundamentally important that you heard what James Gunn has to say, right? And I can respond, right? Instead of me just responding on the internet to quotes and comments and things like that, this is James Gunn's words from a respectable platform. And I gave you all my opinions on what he had to say. So my opinions in brief of what he had to say, I thought most of the stuff he said was bang on. In reality, the only thing I fundamentally didn't agree with is that he doesn't care if he doesn't make a profit on this movie, that he's just looking to get his budget back, yada, yada, yada. He said all he wants to do is make a good movie for people that people love. Well, James, if you make a good movie for people that they love, then your movie's going to make a lot of money. If you didn't make a movie that people love, and you didn't make a good movie, unfortunately, your film isn't going to make money. Because here's the thing, audiences today are not fucking stupid. They know what it takes to make a film. They know when people are being lazy and disingenuous. So we'll soon find out if we're going to love this movie. And I'm coming from a pure place. I understand why Snyderverse fans are upset. I'm upset for what happened with all of that. But I'm also okay to embrace another universe, right? If it's pure and if it's done for good reasons and the people are talented enough, and when they're being interviewed, they mean what they say. So basically, I pretty much liked and agreed and loved everything that Gunn says in this interview because it was very straight, very direct and very honest. But him saying that Superman isn't the be-all and end-all, that Iron Man wasn't the be-all and end-all. Iron Man was the be-all and end-all. Rave reviews, big success, people loved it, simple as that. And this is what Superman needs to be. Superman really, for the studio, I think, if Superman was to make 800 million, they would be so happy. If it makes 500 million, they'll spin it. Anything from 500 million and above, they'll spin it as breaking even. They would love a 700 to 750 million box office as well. But the reality is what they would love is a shock $2 billion success, which is really, really unlikely. But James Gunn saying all he wants is his budget back and it's not the be-all and end-all is absolute bollocks. As far as the rest of the stuff that he said, I was very, very happy with it and I don't have any complaints. You are more than welcome to get into the comments below and let me know what you thought about what James Gunn had to say. If you liked the video, like it. If you want to make some comments, keep on making comments all day. Never get bored. I never get bored of reading all your comments. I'm sorry, but I can't like and read all of them. I am very, very busy right now. I have family staying here. I have my niece staying here, and her friends are doing a university kind of geological study over here. So that's taking up a lot of my time. I'm a very creative guy. I'm writing different scripts, as you know. I'm with my Amateur Dramatic Society in my theatre rehearsing for our next play. There's a lot of things going on, so I'm sorry I don't interact with your comments. Please comment, please share, please like. Because what you're doing is, you're not going to make me money. I'm not going to make a profit. But by making this channel successful, we have a voice. By making this channel successful, you're putting someone out in the mainstream who's honest and direct and is the same as you. A fan.